The Gate of Standstill, gate number 12 in Gemini season. And this is going to be our last throat activation within the Gemini season, bringing us to a completion before we then hit the summer solstice and one of the love gates within human design known as the Gate of Humanity. So in today's lesson, we're going to move through the energy of the shadow of vanity, the dilemma of aloneness, the gift of discrimination, and the highest light aspect, the Sudi of purity. In the teachings of the I Ching, the gate of standstill really acts like a mirror. It is being inactive in word and deed until the moment is right to express. Attuning to each moment and pausing to envision and outline prospective futures that might defy previously accepted and mainstream ways. So really imagine yourself looking at the astrological body of Gemini, the twins, having two sides to everything. In this gate number 12 that we're literally in the very center of that. We're taking time to become the observer of reality, noticing this side of you, that side of you, which can be seen as the masculine and the feminine. The mind that wants to control, it has information, it has opinions, it has a perspective, and the body that is trying to trust in a deeper wisdom, a deeper knowing, and a stillness. It can be very difficult in our personal journeys and in our evolution to be strong enough to come to a standstill, to trust in the pause, to trust in a opportunity to take a step back out of the mainstream of life in order to really assess what is going on around you to get the big picture before taking action. So let us jump into the teachings of human design to get a greater understanding of what is really transforming through the energy within this gate. It is also known as the gate of caution. So here we have a standstill and a caution, and it is coming from a voice of, I know I can try or not. So it is being socially cautious. And you may notice within your own design, if you have gate number 12 within a defined center, that this is a theme within your life. Feeling like you can do something, feeling like you can't do something, being open to an experience, open to a potential to try something new, or feeling like now is not the time, or not feeling ready within your own energy. If your throat center is white, it's undefined, and you have that number 12 circled, you might be really feeling within others their tendency to be socially cautious, their willingness to try or not to try. And because those open centers, those white centers in our human design, bring in energy from around us and then amplify it back at 200%, you might think that you are shy, but you're really not shy. What is happening is you're picking up on the energy of those around you. So it's really an opportunity for all of us, whether that is colored in on your chart or it's not colored in on your chart. At this turning in the mandala wheel during this time in Gemini season, we're all getting this activation. We're experiencing this at a collective level. So you may be really going through a process within yourself of feeling a desire to want to get out and try new things, or feeling more overwhelmed and maybe noticing some insecurities that are surfacing within yourself that are essentially there for you to be the observer of and to free yourself from what we call your own crucifixion. So that gate number 12 is going to give us the energy of caution. It is expressed through the voice and its vibrational frequency because it is more than just words. It is in the auric field. We feel emotions, our thoughts, the physical body, everything has a vibrational frequency. When you move into your higher states of being, the vibrations get higher and higher, meaning you have to be more calm to access the greater understanding. When we're stuck in our lower bodies, our mental body, our emotional body, our physical body, this is where we're going to be replaying within our mind our own suppressions, our own judgments, our own belief within ourselves, what we've been told we can or cannot do, and maybe surfacing within yourself some very real sabotages. So it is an energy of being naturally cautious. It does voice its concern, and the concern comes through the tone of your voice. So you may hear this in other people where you are alerted to that tone of caution within them that causes you to pay a little bit more attention. You may notice it within yourself where other people are listening a little bit deeper because they're hearing something within your own voice. So it is naturally designed to err on the side of caution, to pause because it's not quite certain if it wants to go ahead, if it doesn't want to go ahead, or what it is that it is truly experiencing and feeling. Other people really start to resonate with you when they understand that you're coming from a point of exerting your own caution, taking your time to be more mindful in your actions and in your words. And when this is a part of your character, when you're known to not just be very reactive, but to almost kind of take a step back and to really consider. And sometimes you can actually see people kind of thinking or processing information, but you know that they are taking all things into consideration. And then when they come to you to express what it is that they have come to a conclusion with, there's almost this sense of a deeper trust and a deeper belief in them because you know that they've gone through all the different sides. They've exercised their caution before speaking. So it's like they've eliminated the doubt, or at least they've come to the conclusion of their own reassurance. And maybe noticing that within yourself, do you tend to have a very reactive personality where you're just jumping in and maybe there is an opportunity here to allow yourself time and space to come to a standstill, to not feel that you have to be so reactive to the energies, especially in terms of emotions. And we're going to see how this does tie into the emotional body through its channel in the next slide. Really honoring the space and time that it takes to withdraw yourself from the mainstream of life, the busyness of life, your own emotional energy, other people's emotional energy, in order to get the clarity that is needed to make your first move. When we reach that standstill, there is always the potential, and we have free will choice. So again, here's our Gemini. We can take this side or that side, or we can come right into the balance of that in the power of our communication, in the healing of our younger years, and getting really clear on our persona, which means identifying the masks that we wear for the benefit of society, but they're not of our authentic self. So when we come to that standstill, when we have the courage to just stay in the pause for a little while, you're either going to make a great leap forward, you're going to tune to that higher vision of self, you're going to move yourself out of what is known as your lower expression, out of your emotional energy, your mental energy, your physical energy, and tap into that soul guidance. Or you're going to feel that break. You're going to feel the procrastination in with you. You may feel your self-saboteur arising from within when it's this sense of, I have this dream, I have this vision, I have this goal, but it feels so far away. And when we don't believe that we can jump to that level or we can achieve that kind of greatness, we tend to pull ourselves back. We shrink back into the emotional body, back into our belief system. We put the bird back into the cage, so to speak. So this really is the vibrational energy that is opening us up or closing us up to the experience. It is fueled by passion. So emotional energy is passionate in nature. We're going to see how this comes from the individual wave of passion and mood. So you're either going to be in the mood to listen or not. And when we talk about listening, it is listening to the higher self, the soul self, the deep, deep wisdom that can only be heard when we get out of the way, which is why it's all about coming to that standstill. You are in the energy in Gemini season of really leading towards the the summer solstice. And the summer solstice is when the flowers are at its brightest, right? Everything is showcasing its beauty for the world. Well, it is the same within you. You're coming to that pivotal point where you're ready to open up the fragrance of you, the vibrations of you, the blossomings of you to share with the world or not. That is always our free will gift to have the decision within ourselves. This is coming from what is known as the channel of openness. And this is where we see the energy being drawn towards that throat center from our solar plex, from our emotional awareness. So you're going to want to check your human design chart to see if you have this full channel. And you also want to check your chart, regardless of whether you have that channel or not, to see if you have your emotional center, that solar plex, colored in. And if you do have it colored in, which is about 50% of individuals, you have a emotional wave pattern. Your emotional wave patterns are directly related to those numbers, those gates that are circled in your design. And what that means for you, being of emotional authority, is you don't want to make decisions when you are at a high, when you're feeling really, really good, because we have a tendency to buy too much or take on too much or speak too much. And then when things come down, it's that fear or that awareness of, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Why did I say yes to that? I don't have the energy to do that. So we're always on this roller coaster, this wave pattern of our ups and downs, and that can create a lot of emotional turbulence within ourselves until we give ourselves the grace, the standstill, the caution, the withdrawal period to find our emotional neutrality within there. So this gate of standstill is going to really help to teach us and to help us carry the theme throughout the course of the year of what it means to take that step back, to pause and to feel okay in those pauses of life, to not run through the dialogue of the mind that feels like it's missing out, feels like it's not being heard, it's not being seen, it is kind of drowning in its own individuality, and to really offer yourself the healing, the grace that comes by stepping out to be renewed, to reach the clarity of the higher self, to then step back in with a knowing of what direction to take. So we are pulling this emotional energy that is coming from an individual wave of passion and mood. And it is coming from gate number 22, which is known as the gate of grace. And in the teachings of the gene keys, that gate 22, the gene key 22, it offers us into a whole nother journey of ascension. So this isn't a quick fix. This is a lifetime of really cultivating the awareness within your body of what is of your vices, which means it's your lower vibrating energies, it's your self-sabotages, your conditioned behavior, and what is of the virtues, the higher vibrations, the ascensions, and looking at how to switch back and forth between the two of them to find your way through. So it's no different than looking at the shadow and light components within each and every one of these gates. It's not about ignoring our shadows or trying to get rid of our shadows. It is leaning into the shadow to be the observer of what is coming up for you. What is your emotional talk? What is your self-belief? What is your sabotage coming through? And then calling in the gift aspect. So in this case, you are calling in the gift of grace. And grace has a natural fear of silence. And it's interesting that as we're ending our journey through the throat center, that we're coming into learning to feel comfortable in silence. And if your throat center is undefined, if it's white in your chart, you probably know more than anybody how uncomfortable it is to sit in a room with people and nobody's talking and feeling that pressure inside yourself that you should do something to create attention or you should say something in order to get some kind of conversation going. It is not natural for us to want to be in the silence. And it is our biggest saboteur to keep ourselves busy and keep ourselves distracted so that we're not sitting with ourselves. We're not coming into the balance of the Gemini to be in the heart of the matter. When you come into the heart of the matter, you're coming into the relationship with your soul, the soul human connection. And it's actually our greatest fear of silence that causes our inability to listen. And when you're feeling those sensations within you of, well, nobody is listening to me, nobody is taking me seriously, I don't know how to communicate, I have all this passion and nobody's buying into this passion, it is really moving into the higher expression of yourself to carry out the soul's passion, what the soul came here to do. So you may be feeling at this point in your journey that there is this separation of yourself. We are in the house of communication. We are in the house of persona. There is a push-pull energy in there where you're looking at the masks that you would wear to try to fit into the world, those conditioned aspects, and having to take them off because they don't feel authentic to you any longer. And really noticing how that does, it kind of tears you apart. There's a mourning that comes within that energy. There's a fear of the unknown. There's a fear of, well, if I let go of this, who am I going to be? Who's going to listen to me? Who is going to be by my side? So it's really sitting in that powerful energy and rising above the emotions to create space to practice being comfortable sitting in the silence in order to connect and to build that relationship with the energies, the soul that is here to guide you and bring you through that transformation. So really noticing for yourself how much that fear is coming up for you, how much you may be at the mercy of your emotions during this time, feeling this pressure of, well, everybody else is blossoming and blooming and all those things that we tend to tell ourselves when we're comparing ourselves to the rest of the world. And then rising above that to remind yourself in the openness of all this possibility that exists, that you are your own seed, you are your own flower, you are moving through your journey in your own time and in your own way. And your greatest gift is to spend time with yourself to get to know what brings you that joy, what brings you that happiness, what brings you to that fulfillment of opening yourself up to then share your gifts with the rest of the world. So you may find there's a lot of emotional energy during this time. You can be empowering, vulnerable, and unpredictable all at the same time. So this is also in that air, right? So air has the tendency to become very, very stimulated. And we are nearing into Cancer season. So Cancer is a water sign. So now you have some air and it knows on the other side that air is all this water. You might already be kind of drawing towards you some of the tendencies to have a torrential downpour, a tsunami, a hurricane, whatever that is, if you are really feeding the power of the mind. So you may be at a crossroads for yourself right now of having to change your own perspective. And I know for myself, I had to lean on my spiritual teacher and get some guidance. This is in my chart as well. And it was very much spiraling into those lower bodies within the self. And we do need to have lifelines from time to time from others who are already evolved on the journey, who have already walked through those fires, so to speak. And knowing for yourself that when you are going through moments within your own journey, it is not only helpful to reach for support from those who have already walked that path, but to know that that is actually an act of grace. There is power in asking for what it is that you truly need, and also noticing for yourself, are you open to receiving? Are you open to listening for guidance? Are you open to listening for the help that is available to you? Or is there a conditioning in the mind of, well, I have to figure this out. I have to be in charge. I'm here alone. And really leading into those teachings. It is designed to bring us on the path that is less traveled. But just like walking through the wilderness, you're not here to get all cut up and bumped and bruised and scraped. You are here to notice the tracks. You are here to open the doorways for yourself and for others by being receptive to the natural world, to those that have left a lot of clues and a lot of teachings and a lot of wisdom behind. It is not the story of having to walk a path away from everybody else, being different than everyone else, taking the hard road of life, but trusting that your journey is unique to you. Your experience is unique to you. And that's what makes it the path less traveled. Everybody else is trying to do things in a way that somebody else is doing it. We have a world full of copycats, full of imitations, full of mimicking. The path less traveled is the path to your authenticity. And that is where, when you sit in the silence and you're not afraid to get to know yourself, to come into the balance of yourself, to step out of the mainstream world, to spend time in the solitude of getting to fall in love with you, that is when the doorways open. That is when the chambers within your heart begin to open up for you. The wisdom comes out for you, and you then become a guide to others through being a living, breathing example within your own flowering, your own openness. A lot of times those who have this channel, it appears very calm and very assured on the outside. Inside, the emotions are all over the place. So when you're working with sensitives, a sensitive can feel the disconnect within your body. And again, this is an opportunity for you to notice this within yourself. A lot of times, are you seeing what appears to be calm when looking at somebody, but there is confusion within you because you're like, something doesn't appear to be right here. You're hearing something in a tone of voice, or you're feeling overwhelmed within your own body. You're wondering why you are nervous, but the other person appears to be quite calm, but yet you were fine before coming into their presence. And it really is a teaching opportunity for us that we are more than this physical body. Our energy bodies, our emotional bodies, our mental bodies, and all the other layers that extend from us carry powerful vibrational frequencies. So, not allowing yourself to judge a book by its cover, but knowing the value of finding and allowing space for the true calm and the true self-assurance to emerge within you by building that deeper relationship with your higher self, and also using those areas of being able to feel other people's energies as a gauge for their true emotions or their true expression. That is where grace steps in. You may meet somebody who appears calm, but you're feeling all this emotional energy. What if that is your opportunity to really start breathing into yourself and anchoring yourself down to the earth, allowing yourself to connect and invite in stability, calmness, assurance, trusting that your auric field sends it out to the other person's auric field. So whether they are triggering you to bring in more balance within yourself, you're open to the experience of the energy, or you are being invited to share your gifts, your grace with somebody else who can benefit from what it is that you are able to accumulate and allow the overflow to seep into that auric field. It is really here to teach us how to be clear with ourselves before we express emotions. It's really easy to be reactive, to jump in, to say something that you might regret, to take action and do something you might regret, whether that is something that is attacking another, projecting it onto another, saying yes when you meant to say no when you meant to say yes, allowing yourself, it is okay to take the pause until we get clarity. And if you are of emotional authority, that is essential in learning your design. If you were to do nothing else but to give yourself space and time before expressing your emotions, you would see dramatic change within your life. When we dismiss our emotions, so we just stuff them down, we pretend that they're not there, we override our fears, our anxieties, our worries, whatever is surfacing, you're going to block your manifestation. You are denying yourself, those inner pieces of yourself, from being seen, heard, and acknowledged. Well, that is the fear of silence. And that often spills out into tears, into an outburst, into a reaction. And a lot of times we see children, including the inner child within us, that just becomes so upset. And it doesn't matter what you say to them, they're not listening. They're closed right off because the emotions are just so overwhelming. And that's the power of this gate. When we are not dealing with our emotions or expressing our feelings, or we're not open to being ourselves, and we're trying to bottle everything in, it really does play out in this mess, in this sea of emotions that has no clarity. There is no way to rationalize it. There's no way to sometimes talk yourself down from that. It is sometimes very difficult to kind of reflect back and go, why did I do that? Why was that such a big deal? And why did it spiral into such a emotional drama? And a lot of times it is literally just that was the last straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. So if you find yourself often overwhelmed by emotions or periodically things just kind of explode within you, your body wisdom, your higher self-expression is trying to teach you how to deal with those before they become such volcanoes of activity. So, knowing to deal with your emotions, to take a step back and go, ooh, why did I just feel that way? Why did that just trigger me? What is going on within me? Those are all moments of taking that pause, taking that step out, and opening up the channel to the higher self. So when we recognize our emotions, when you start talking to the inner child of you, when you start becoming aware of your fear stories, your self-sabotages, your patterns, when you recognize all of that, now you can intercept it by inviting in the wisdom. You're going to maintain balance, which is maintaining the balance within your pH levels. You're not too acidic, you're not too alkaline, you are harmonically beautiful within yourself. When the mind is calm and the body is calm, the spirit within rises us up and out. It takes us out of our lower vibrating energies and into those higher expressions, the virtuous parts of who we are. And it's also here to teach us that even though we're not expressing our emotions, you're not verbally saying something, your auric field, that energy field that's around you, it is so intense and it is affecting other people. So when we become aware that, if you're really angry, and experiment with this, when you are feeling calm and neutral within yourself, just observe people within your environment and see if you can kind of get a gauge on how they're feeling. And perhaps you've had an experience where somebody is going through a lot of sadness and they come into the office place or the family unit in that state of sadness and they're not saying anything, but you just start to feel your own energy levels start to go down. You are aware of their body language. You are aware of their lack of engagement. You are aware of the dimness of their light, their eyes down, they're shadowing away. You can feel this intensity of their grief, of their sadness, of their pulling away from that light. You might even notice that with somebody who is angry. Maybe you're just noticing the flashes in their eyes, their body language. They might have different kind of movements. You might be feeling a lot more on edge, looking over your shoulder. The more you're aware of your ability to pick up energies within others and then to notice how it affects you, it's also teaching you how your own emotional energy plays out in other people around you. So a lot of times individuals that find these teachings and that I connect with, they're sensitives and they're empaths. And there's a lot of stories of, well, I can't go to that place because the energy is too hard, and I can't be with that person because their energy just overwhelms me. So the mind already closes off. The channel of openness is now closed. It's closed to life. What if that other person or that building is a mere reflection of what is within ourselves? And sometimes we don't want to look at those pieces of ourselves. We don't want to look at our anger. We don't want to look at our sadness. We don't want to look at our own suffering. But it's only when you sit in the honesty of those expressions can you then get the clarity of how to move forward from here. My husband says it beautifully. He says, people must be happy, otherwise they would change. And when you look around the world, you have a lot of people that like to complain a lot. I do it too. And that has such truth to it. We must be happy, otherwise we would change. So knowing your emotions, honoring your emotions, seeing what is surfacing for you. And that's what it means to stay open to life, to keep the heart open, to keep the solar plex open, which is where we get the gut brain. We're learning to open the solar plex awareness. We're learning the power of that higher self-expression of our inner spirit and allowing ourselves to really tap into that wisdom by embracing the fullness of the depths, the emotions, the spirit within us, and not putting on the mask and worrying about whether or not that is socially acceptable. So this is a beautiful opportunity to really go through your own levels of awareness to see how you react to emotional energy, to see how you feel other people's emotions. Are you honoring your own emotions? Do you allow time before making your decisions if you are of emotional authority in your chart? Really getting to know yourself, looking at the voice of, I know I can try or not, looking at the fear of silence and how does that play a role? Do you give yourself time and space to sit in silence, or does that carry anxiety for you? So learning to create space to explore the unknown territory, the path less traveled, the path of your authenticity by learning to open up the doorways in yourself, not looking out into the world for someone else to open that doorway for you. We're going to move now into the teachings of the gene keys. The gene keys is the key now that opens up the gate. It gives us the inner alchemy potential as it teaches us about the shadow energy, the dilemma in there, the gift aspects for us to start to cultivate, and how to really reach for the highest light essence, the Sudi, within the gate. So we are using the book of the Gene Keys by its teacher, Richard Rudd. I highly encourage you to get a copy of this if you don't already. It is a beautiful resource to help you really come into your own contemplations. And I'm going to share some of the takeaways that Richard has put within those teachings and kind of add in some of what is coming through in my own journey. But you're invited to have your own expression and to go even further into this for yourself. And that is why it's known as self-actualization. We're all going to have our own unique experience. So let us move into the shadow of vanity. And actually, before we even get to that, there is a lot of magic within the gate number 12. In the teachings of the gene keys, there's certain gates, certain numbers, certain gene keys that when put together, they form what is known as rings. These are rings of energy. They're rings of a relationship. Gate number 12, gene key number 12, is part of two separate rings. It forms what is known as part of the ring of trials, which is part of gate number 12, gate number 33, and gate number 56. So in the teachings of the gene key, it states the 12th gene key, along with the 56th and 33rd, is related to what science terms the stop or the terminator codon. On a purely archetypical level, the three stop codons, known collectively as the Ring of Trials, can be seen as three great mythic trials that test human beings on the road to self-realization. Now, gate number 12, gene key number 12, by itself gives us what is known as the Ring of Secrets. So within the mystery of the 21 codon rings, the 12th gene key forms a ring of its own within the Ring of Trials, known as the Ring of Secrets. Only when you have attained the highest peak of consciousness does the mythical event occur. You give up everything you have attained. You have to court annihilation. This abyss must be crossed in order for higher consciousness to dawn. And the crossing of death is a symbolic letting go of your hard-earned knowledge. It is the ultimate purification in which you meet your own death and are reborn in a higher sphere. So we are in a pathway of going through a trial, of being open to life, open to the teachings of life, and not staying in the cage of our human, of our mind, of our belief system, of what we think we know, but allowing ourselves to be taught. And the only teacher that has the purity is life itself. You are a part of life. I am a part of life. The trees are a part of life. The animals, the rocks, the minerals, the universe is part of life. This brings us in from what we know, knowledge, and into wisdom. And we're going to see as we go through the shadow why it's the very last trial that we undertake in order to cross over into that higher state of being. And this is where we meet the shadow of vanity in our dilemma of aloneness. And whenever we have a self-identification, meaning we believe in ourself, or we have a sense of separateness, there's vanity. And that really is one of the core human wounds, is separation. We came into this earthly journey forgetting our connection to the divine. We have the free will choice to find our way home, to remember who we truly are. But in going through those human struggles, you're growing love, you're growing dedication, you're growing compassion when you're choosing to go through to the virtues. We're also growing the vices, the fears, the suppressions when we're choosing to stay in our shadow energy. So as long as we experience ourselves as separate from life, as long as you're feeling the strength and wonder of your individuality, vanity is still going to be there, and it is going to keep pace with you. Now, we have to remember that a little bit of the shadow is needed for the gift. The gift is found within the shadow. So it's not about not paying any attention to yourself, not liking yourself, not striving to be the best of yourself. It is understanding that when we are in alignment to the higher self, that little aspect of the shadow of vanity that wants to strive to be the best version of you that it can possibly be, that drives you through that passion, that openness to remain committed to that higher calling. The shadow of vanity in its shadow essence is where you think you have to figure it all out by yourself. You have to do this all alone. You have to be somebody. You want to be seen. You want to be heard. And you're not understanding that life is an expression itself. And it is very much seen and it is very much heard. But we have been conditioned in a world to compete. We have been taught that we are separate from others. There is a feeling of disconnect in the energy because a lot of people are in their shadow. You're living in a world of shadow. So it doesn't feel like this is home. But yet, in the shadow, there's a spark of creation, of divinity within each and every one of us. We want to look at ourselves. You're not here to fix anybody else. You're not here to fix the world, but you are here to ascend yourself. So, looking at your own vanity, vanity keeps you from truly loving another because it keeps you isolated. You unconsciously defend yourself against others, and vanity is then a shift that hides the truth from you. And I know within myself, one of the ways that this plays out is I can get really lonely. But then the mind comes in and says, well, you can't call them. They're busy. They're living their lives. They're doing their things. So then it shuts down in its isolation. And if I'm not careful in honoring that, it can get very emotionally trapped and it can feed that lonely story, that isolation story, which is one of my patterns in my own journey to overcome. So, looking at that in yourself, where do you keep yourself from really connecting with love and feeling connected to your environment, your workplace, your family, your friends? What is vanity doing within you that feeds a narrative to a story that keeps you isolated? Remember, this is a self journey. Vanity is all about loving the sound of your own voice. It can choose the most beautiful words, but it can never hide the frequency of its tone. And that's where sometimes you can have a conversation with somebody and it's almost like they give you a backhanded compliment. Oh, you look very nice today. But you're like, what do they mean by that? Right? So there's always something in the tone, whether it's a jealousy, a discontent, something within themselves are being expressed through their words. So their words can sound very positive, very uplifting, very encouraging, but yet you're hearing something in there that has a lack, that has a shadow, that has a fear. And that is how our mind talks to our heart. That's how your mind is talking to your solar plex, your power center. And until we really learn how to stand in our own power, there's going to be this push-pull energy. Well, what did that really mean? Am I really doing the right thing? What will other people think of that? Right? The only relationship that you can really feed and stand secure on is with your higher self. But you can't build a relationship with your higher self if you're getting advice from your shadow, if you're getting advice from your emotional energy or the stories that you have that want to hold on to your self-created identity. Vanity can also go behind the words. It can hide in silence, which is suppressing your thoughts, suppressing your feelings, not allowing yourself to live. We become a hollow existence of ourselves. We convince ourselves, well, I'm here to live for somebody else. You mold yourself into society. You mold yourself into creating an identity. We put the mask on. We want people to think we're confident, to think that we have the answers. We want to be seen as important. We want to be valued. We want to have a certain title. We want to climb a corporate ladder. Well, those are all ways of hiding behind vanity. Because what does your authentic self want to do? Does your authentic self want to dress that way, say those words, show up there? Or you going to work looking a certain way, and meanwhile inside is going, I just want to tell everybody to F off, right? Really noticing it. And this isn't to tell anybody to go out and have that kind of behavior. It's really just to come into our awareness how we put on a mask, a persona for others, and we say things because we believe that's what people want to hear, or that's what society wants us to say. That is what is culturally acceptable. But yet inside, there's a whole nother story going on. So it's hiding away the thoughts and it's hiding away the feelings. Meanwhile, the auric field is carrying the truth of everything that you are experiencing. So people are feeling your energy of discontent. They're feeling your anger. They're feeling your frustration, even though the mask you're wearing is looking like it is perfectly fine and you're expressing love to somebody else. That is how powerful our shadows are. Vanity is deeply involved with issues of personal power, as well as the human yearning to express the purest qualities within our soul. So, this is where we see that there is the shadow of vanity and there's a gift in the vanity. There is the two sides, just like Gemini. There is the love for power and there's the power of love. Your soul wants to express the power of love. We are conditioned to acquire personal power, acquire money, acquire title, acquire influence and control so that you can get somewhere. So that's that push-pull energy. The soul longs for this, the human condition longs for that. It is a tug of war that can create a lot of emotions within ourselves if we're staying in that shadow existence. Vanity, in its lower expression, is really afraid that if you come from your heart, you're going to lose your power. It has a dialogue that if you start serving the world, if you start being of service to others, if you're in service to the light, you're going to lose out. It sees itself as separate. It doesn't understand that when helping and loving everybody else, you also benefit. If you're open in that channel, then that is the law of giving and receiving. You are receiving back in equal measures what you are giving out. But if you're giving out things that come with the condition of love, if I do that for you, you better do this for me. If it comes with attachment, if it comes with expectation, and it's not coming from the purity of doing what you love to do in your expression, then we do lose our power because our mind tells us that you are robbing from you to give to another. It doesn't see itself as part of the whole. It's like being up in the airplane and then finally seeing, oh my goodness, look at all these little people. Look at the city. Look at the landscape. Look at the bigger picture. Well, if you came outside of Earth and you raised yourself into a rocket ship, you would look down at this little sphere of Earth and go, oh, we're all in that together. All of humanity is in that together. There's not a you against them. You're all in this orb of creation, of life together. But our story, our shadow of vanity runs so deeply that tries to self-protect and it tries to hold it contained. And as we're coming closer to the summer solstice and the opportunity to really bloom, to open up your heart to life, to create your heaven on earth, there is that energy in there that's kind of fighting on. The shadow doesn't want to lose out. So it tells you that you're going to lose your power. Meanwhile, your soul is saying, there is more than enough for all of us. To give is to receive in multitudes. As we refine our frequency, we're naturally falling into the illusion that somehow you are different from others. You're becoming purer than the rest of the world. You begin to identify more with your higher self, which your lower self takes great delight in. And this is where we see the shadow of vanity serving the highest good, but it can also keep us stuck in a loop. This is very symbolically portrayed in the teachings of the gene keys, because we're going to see that every shadow, every gate, every number, every gene key, they all have the same language, has a shadow, has a lower vibrating energy. Well, this triangle represents your physical body, your emotional body, your mental body. That's our shadow. We get stuck in our humanness. We're very human. When we start to move past our human, we start to open up our third eye. We start to tap into a higher state of consciousness, building a relationship with the higher self. Well, then we're working with the gift aspects. There's 64 of those gifts. So there's more than just the 64. But in the teachings of the gene keys, there's 64 of them. This is where we tap into the soul body, the divine wisdom, the higher expressions of our emotion. So it's like coming up and out of who you are. We're not just down in the lowers, we're rising to the higher. When we get to the highest aspect of light that is afforded to us, this is where we're seeing those two triangles intersect. That is the Sudi. It is a acceptance of one's shadow and an acceptance of one gift and bringing them together to where they actually neutralize. And in neutralizing it, it just kind of dissolves. You're no longer alone because you're one. You're no longer in that separation because you feel the wholeness. You're no longer in the fear story because fear doesn't exist. So this is where we're learning to accept our shadow, accept our vanity, learn to use the gift, accept the gift without perfection because we're human. And also knowing that as we start overcoming our shadows, we naturally start falling into this idea of, well, I'm doing my work. I'm on my spiritual journey. I'm purifying myself. I'm ascending. I'm higher than others. I'm doing better than my neighbor. I'm doing better than that person. So we still carry that vanity. Our vanity stays with us until the very end, when we finally neutralize all 64 shadows, all 64 gifts, and we move into that high light aspect. So it's not about comparing yourself to anyone else ever, ever. It is about striving to be the best that you can be while accepting your very human nature. Knowing that some days they're just going to be rough. We're going to fall off the wagon. We're going to cut ourselves. We're going to scrape ourselves. We're going to say things that are not coming from our highest expression. They're very much in the shadow energies. And that is where we open up. We open up the channel of openness to grace. We call in forgiveness. We call in compassion. We call in kindness. We ask for the virtues. There is powerful energy that is flowing to us at all times. In a repressive state, it is known as the elitist. The elitist thinks that it is better than other people. And we see a lot of people in spirituality that have this. They put the t-shirt on. I've been there. I've done that. I've got this. I know this. I'm better than. It's defined in the teachings of the gene keys as vanity working undercover. It is somebody who, in your presence, is probably going to agree with whatever you're saying, but inside, it absolutely does not. And noticing where you do that, where I do that, we all do that. Just playing along with somebody, listening to their opinion, but meanwhile going, oh, that's stupid, right? You agree with them. Oh, yeah, totally. I get it. The dialogue in here is different. It often chooses to remain detached, so it doesn't want to make any commitments. Because if it has to choose, well, what if it should be wrong? So it tries to play safe by not committing, by not offering its own opinion, its own expression, staying very elusive, pretending that it's better than. Oh, I don't want to be bothered by that. I don't want to choose between that. Those are both fine. It doesn't matter to me. But it's actually withdrawing because it is afraid of being seen as weak. It's afraid of being wrong. It's afraid of not hearing correctly. It's afraid of that silence. When you have the crickets in the room after you've said something, it is afraid of that. It often occurs in those who have done a lot of work, so the spiritually involved. And a lot of times, we take pride for being different for whatever reason. And I definitely do this for myself, and I'm learning to recognize it. But we take pride in our uniqueness and our ways and our differences. But those differences keep us in that illusion of separation. We're here to harness our gift. We're here to connect. Maybe you channel, maybe you get downloads, maybe you are involved in some mediumship, some psychic abilities, whatever that is. It's knowing that that is accessible to all. You are here to have an expression of that within yourself as a vessel to the divine. But it is not only from self. And a lot of times we get really caught up in that. Or we start feeling really proud about our purity, which then can bring on an arrogance. I'm doing the work. If only they would change, if only they would understand, if only they would follow these teachings. I know exactly what they should be doing. That gets us into the danger of judgment, of criticism, of expectations, of believing that we understand what the other person is going through. It really keeps you in that smaller state of the vanity. So some awareness to see, where does that come up for you? It's all about awareness. It's not about judging yourself, judging others. It's just noticing, being curious, where do I repress vanity within myself? Where do I agree, but yet inside I'm like, no, that is so wrong. Where am I afraid to make an attachment or have my own opinion? Why am I afraid of the silence? Why am I so invested in what somebody else thinks? Why am I comparing myself to someone else's spiritual journey or lack of spiritual journey? On the reactive side of this, this is where I see the little chihuahua. Sometimes it can appear to be very small in nature, but it is vicious. You reach down to pet something cute and it just about tries to bite your hand off. So it's when somebody feels attacked for whatever reason, they feel like they have been put upon. So they're either backed against a corner or they've just hit the last straw on the camel's back. They're pretending to be something and they're just overwhelmed in that pretending. So there's a lot of anger. And that anger is fear. Fear of being caught, fear of being exposed, fear of having to come up with an answer, fear of being judged. We carry so many fears within ourselves that we're here to learn to overcome. And we've all had experiences where something has poked our button and we can be very malicious. We can be malicious in our words, we can be malicious in our actions, we can be malicious in our silence. We have a whole cancel culture. Being malicious in silence, giving someone the silent treatment, pretending they do not exist, blocking them out, suppressing your emotions, creating all sorts of confusion. That is a closing. That's not a channel of opening. So a lot of times it's so reactive to us where we're taught to do this. It's our animal instinctive nature that has been poked. You've poked the bear. And the more we can catch that, catch your triggers, catch your reactions, deal appropriately with the emotions as they're coming to the surface so they don't escalate to that point of just feeling so overwhelmed, then we don't become so malicious. We've all had experiences where someone else's vocal gifts, so the power of their voice, the power of their gossip, the power of their communication, their words, knowing what to say, what buttons to press, how that can inflict pain. We've all been on the receiving end of that. We've all been on the giving end of that. So it's noticing it. It's noticing it and it's choosing then to take a higher path, to rise out of our own emotional energy, to talk to listen to the higher expression of that emotion. So this brings us now into the gift of discrimination. And you might have energy around the word discrimination because we've been taught that to discriminate means to leave something out. What you want to do is you want to see this as a filter. If you're making coffee, you're going to put a filter in the pot to catch all the grounds, the harsh bits, and to purify and get the liquid coming out to make the best brew, its aroma, its flavor that you enjoy. It's also to clear water, right? So we filter through to get clear drinking water. Think of that as the purest of forms. You're going to discriminate your thoughts. You're going to discriminate your emotions. You're going to purify your lower nature by tapping into the higher nature. So to discriminate is to know inherently what and who is healthy for you in life. It's not afraid to enter into the drama. So this is where we talked about not being afraid to go to Walmart or to go to those places where you say, well, no, that's too much energy for me, or I can't be around that person. Well, that's the vanity. We want to be not afraid to participate in life, to enter into the drama and let it just flow through you, flow through your water, feel the feelings, feel the energy, and then let it be filtered from your higher self so that you can learn and grow through the experience. Not become overwhelmed in the shadow, but to immerse yourself in, purify by calling in the higher expressions, and stepping more solidly into your wisdom. Vanity, which is really just the urge to be better or somehow purer than others, when you use it with the gift of discrimination, it creates the potential to fall in love. So it raises our vibration into a higher state of being. If you are no longer afraid of going to Walmart or going to this place or being around that person because the energy is too intense, if you stop limiting yourself to certain pockets of life and you allowed yourself to be taught by your higher expression to feel completely comfortable and open to the experience of life. Imagine how much more love that would create. If we are all flowers, picture this in your mind for a moment. If each and every one of us are a flower, and when you go out walking in the world, every time somebody looks away or looks down or looks into their phone, imagine the flower closing. Imagine how many individuals are walking around with a closed flower. Now bring this back to yourself because this is a reflection of your own energy. How many times do you close the flower of you when in the presence of another or in a situation or in an environment that for whatever reason you don't like? How many times do you close in your day? How many times does a thought come down that hurts your heart and you go, pulls in your energy? Well, we're in the channel of opening. So the more you recognize where you close and how you close, the more you're going to learn to open. That is what it means by raising your vibration. That is practicing the gift of discrimination, catching yourself. I just looked away from that. Dare to look. Look at what makes you uncomfortable. Feel the feelings. Be present in that experience. Catch your thought. Flip the thought. What if it is possible? Change your perspective. Open your perspective. Discrimination is about falling in love with things and people outside yourself that make you feel good. We're truly here to find our joy and happiness, to live a beautiful life, to create our heaven on earth. By tuning your attention towards doing what you love and surrounding yourself by people, by energies that you love, not alienating anything else, but just spending more active time, immersing yourself in what feels good and healthy for you, you're going to flourish. So if you were to look at the world as an ecosystem, within the ecosystem, there's many smaller pockets of ecosystems. Some of us do really well in water. Some of us do really well in earth. Some of us do really well in the air. Some of us do really well in fire, right? That's just the elemental energies. But look at that in a broader scale. Some like cities, some like towns, some like hustle and bustle, some like quiet and calm. We're not all the same. So there's certain things that naturally feel good to you and they help you to feel alive. And this is being alive at the soul level, not feeding into the shadow of the vanity, but just knowing in your body, oh, I'm more relaxed, I'm more calm, I'm more present, and allowing yourself to do more of that. So it's really about your feeling. You're going to be strongly motivated by your feelings and your emotions. And a lot of times we don't realize how much our feelings and our emotions dictate how we live our life. It stimulates the mind, that stimulates a fear, that creates a story, that keeps you in a narrative. So until we're honest about what it is we are expressing from the lower state, and then literally reach to our higher state, the divine parent, and ask for guidance, we're going to stay strapped in the inner child. You're going to stay stuck in that energy. So noticing we're strongly motivated by feelings and emotions, and then using that to communicate the feelings to others. Share your authenticity, share your vulnerability, share the truth of what your auric field is already projecting out, which means you're dropping down the mask, you're dropping down the persona, you're communicating from a higher level of truth, It's not malicious because you're filtering through. You're taking a pause, you're taking a standstill before engaging. So when you do engage, it's coming from the higher expression of your truth. It doesn't mean people are always going to like what you say, but you're going to be honest. You're going to have healthy boundaries. You're going to have equal respect for yourself as you do for others. It's knowing when someone or something is not expressing the language of their soul, not engaging with somebody else's shadows, not playing into that shadow, helping to pull out the light, bringing that forward. It's the ability to see through a hidden agenda. When somebody says, "Oh, I can help you," what is it that they're wanting in return? And it's not to block their help. It's to know who purely wants to help because they just want to help and that's their expression of love, and who has an expectation that if they do this, you better be available for that. We have the ability to discern between that. You're going to feel a deep discomfort in your body when there is a hidden agenda in somebody's tone and somebody's vibrational energy, and it's really paying attention to that. It sounds too good to be true. Well, chances are it is too good to be true. We live in a world that has used and mined emotional data and studied human behavior to now know how to market directly to you because they know your patterns and they can predict exactly what it is you're going to do, meaning they're more aware of you than you are yourself. So until we really get to know ourself, the world will keep showing us a mere reflection of what it is we are doing. So the more you honor that little nudge, that little discomfort that says, "Ooh, I don't know," the more you dare to take a pause, to take a step back. You're not going to be fooled. You're going to reach and you're going to filter and you're going to sit in the silence to get the wisdom. There's a deep respect for purity in here. It no longer wants the good enough. It's no longer satisfied with falseness or imitation. It wants the purity of the design. It wants to express its authenticity. It wants others to express their authenticity. So it is seeking a higher frequency. And when you are in a higher frequency, yes, it starts to get thinner up there because there is room for more expansion. It's not better than anybody else. It is opening you up even further to receive. And when you are reaching for that, when you're living your life in quality of conversation, quality of friendship, quality of doing business, quality of yourself showing up, you are going to challenge anything and anyone that is influenced by compromise. If it's coming from a fake sense, if it's coming from something that doesn't agree with you, no, that's not for me. That doesn't feel right for me. I don't accept that. I'm not going to be spoken to that way. It's really having a divine aspect of love for yourself and for others. Authenticity is everything to the individual with the gift of discrimination. If you do not fall in love with something, you distrust it, along with the people in your life. And that is such a powerful teaching from the Gene Keys and really a point of reflection. When you don't love something, you don't trust it. And that always brings me back to the ultimate relationship you're ever going to have is the one with you. When you love yourself, you trust yourself. And that is the journey of authenticity. That is the journey through human design, the Gene Keys, inner alchemy, more than existing, whatever it is that is drawing to you. It's all beautifully designed to get you to fall in love with yourself, to see yourself, to know yourself, to understand yourself, to reach for the higher aspects of yourself by keeping yourself open. So this brings us to the highest expression, the Sudi of purity. Vanity and purity are mirrors at two ends of the spectrum of human consciousness. With vanity, your lower self falls in love with itself, and with purity, the higher self falls in love with itself. You might say that purity is when the divine falls in love with you. This can only happen when you come within the sphere of divine love. It is the parent that embraces a child. It is the higher expression of you when you reach to meet it. Your behavior, your thoughts, your feelings, the very air you breathe must resonate to one purpose, what the Sufis call falling in love with the beloved. The beloved is not something out there. It is the essence of your true nature. And you do not fall into it because it resides deep within you. And this is where the world tricks us. The world teaches us to look externally to figure out who you are and to find yourself, when all along everything is so deep inside you that it's about spending time with you, cultivating a relationship with you, loving yourself, taking care of your physical, your emotional, your mental, allowing the soul to feel at home so that it can then guide the way forward and come here to do what it was called to do. When your heart finally remembers its own original purity, only then will you finally and willingly give up your existence. The crossing of death is a symbolic letting go of all your hard-earned knowledge. It is the ultimate purification in which you meet your own death and are reborn in a higher sphere. It's when we let go of thinking we know all the answers or we believe we know the way, and we ask to be shown. We listen for the guidance. You transcend the mind by becoming one with the mind. And the paradox here is that in becoming the mind ceases to exist. This is the truest symbolism of the genetic stop codon. It brings an end to your own individual essence, revealing vanity for what it truly is. The illusion that you are separate. You are so pure that it is not possible for you to exist as anything other than existence itself. In crossing the great cosmic throat center, you are swallowed by life itself. And that is our journey through the throat center. That is our journey through Gemini season, all of those gate activations within the element of air, within really recognizing that it is symbolic of the twins. There's always going to be this side, that side, and it's only when we come into the harmony, we come into the balance, the acceptance of ourselves, that we then rise up and out into those higher expressions. So this whole teaching was all about allowing yourself to stay open by bringing yourself into that harmony and balance, noticing where you are struggling, noticing where you're not being authentic, noticing where you are closing down the flower of you to people, to places, to situations, and really leaning into, well, what brings you the joy and the happiness? What helps you to create that strong foundation so that you feel supported enough to blossom into bloom as we are coming closer to the summer solstice. That beautiful expression of allowing and trusting in the power of universal love. So this is a pivotal teaching. And it's a teaching that not only opens during this time of the year when we're in the season, but every gate, every teaching, every shadow, every gift, every sudi that you have been learning are here all the time for us to learn and grow with. And it's only when you're willing to do your own shadow work, to look at those aspects of yourself, to catch when you are drowning in your own emotions or you're stuck up in the mind and your stories, that you can then break free. So the rings of trial, those stop codons, those give you those moments where the energy just really kind of comes in and puts on the brake and says, let's stop for a moment. Let's stop and really examine the stories in your mind, the stories in your heart, the stories in your emotions, and let's sit in the silence for a little while. Let's come out of the mainstream activity, the hustle and the bustle, and let's listen to what it has to say. Let's spend some time with self and be open to receiving so that you can then really put out into the world the true fragrance of your soul self, your higher self, your purified self. So there is a lot of energy in here for us to unravel. I really do highly encourage you to get a copy of the Gene Keys if that is available to you. Read through, do your own contemplation, notice how that plays out. And if you don't have your birth charts, get a copy of your birth chart. Send me an email, drop in the comments below. You're going to have to supply your birth information, but those charts are available to you complimentary. We actually have links in the course here. You don't even need to send me an email. There's going to be links in the course for you to create those yourself. And they're powerful tools for you to get to know who you are. So trust that. You want a more in-depth private reading? Reach out. Let's connect. Let's explore all the possibilities that are there when you are allowing the higher expression of you to find its voice within the world. You're not here to compete in a world where a lot of people are just not listening. You're here to listen. So when we step into what is known as the master is just somebody who is ready to be taught. So let us all embrace our inner masters and learn what we can through this beautiful gate and the teaching of standstill and caution. Namaste. The light in me sees the light in you. I look forward to connecting in our very last gate activation for the remainder of Gemini season. Take care.